The San Francisco 49ers host the Arizona Cardinals in Week 1 to open the 2020 NFL season. And I'm Keiana Martin, joined by Yahoo fantasy sports writer Dalton Del Don to break down notable fantasy football starts and sit considerations heading into the weekend. Dalton, get this thing started. What's the matchup you're looking forward to most in this divisional contest against the Cardinals and 49ers?
It's got to be George Kittle. Niners dealing with some injuries at wide receiver. Arizona allowed by far the most fantasy points against tight ends last season. Should be a high-paced game. Kittle's my number one fantasy tight end of the week and the year this year, actually, too.
Wow, for the entire year. That's impressive. Congratulations to you if you picked up Kittle in your league. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Kyler Murray. It'll be a true test for this 49ers D-line and their ability to contain a mobile guy like Kyler Murray. Do you start the 49ers defense against Murray, especially considering his new weapon, DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, you drafted the 49ers to start them. Most teams don't have multiple defenses, so you got to use them. But I agree with you. It's not the greatest matchup. Last year, Kyler Murray, he didn't have any turnovers against the 49ers. They did get him for 7 sacks, though. And, man, a healthy D Ford, that defense could possibly be even better than last season. So you're still rolling with the 49ers, but consider them more of a top 5, top 10 matchup as opposed to a usual top 1 or 2.
The 49ers own the top-ranked passing defense in 2019, looking to carry that stat into 2020, looking at newly paid receiver DeAndre Hopkins. How are you feeling about the 49ers' chances of limiting him in his debut with Arizona?
Yeah, I'd temper my expectations if I had DeAndre Hopkins on my fantasy team. He dealt with a hamstring injury, contract issue. He's a new team, first year during the abnormal short offseason. And as you mentioned, a tough matchup against SF's dominant secondary. So you're going to roll with them in fantasy, but the Niners are a very, very difficult matchup. So temper your expectations for Hopkins' debut in the desert.
Dalton, your Twitter bio says you're a lover of Jimmy G. So, of course, we're going to talk about him. Last year, Jimmy Garoppolo feasted not once, but twice against Arizona's defense, throwing for 317 and then a season-high 424 yards in both of his matchups and 8 total touchdowns. Got to add that, too. How are you feeling about the 49ers quarterback with a receiving core that might be dealing with a few unknowns?
Confidence level remains high because, as I mentioned, Arizona is so susceptible to the tight end, and Jimmy G happens to have a pretty good one in Kittle, and even Jordan Reed an option now of the slot. The Niners obviously dealing with some depth issues. Hopefully Deebo returns. Ayuk is highly impressed during the preseason. Hopefully he's healthy. But, man, you said it. Jimmy G averaged more than 370 yards last year against Arizona, the 8 TDs. The second year in Shanahan's system, Matt Ryan won the MVP. That's what Jimmy G is doing this year, and he's removing the knee brace. The ACL surgery is another year removed. Jimmy G was free at fantasy draft tables, and I get it. The Niners want to pound the football and have a good defense, but in the right matchups like this one Sunday, I think he's a sneaky fantasy play.
Dalton, I like what you're giving us here today. All right. Well, 49ers have a host of running backs, which can kind of be a double-edged sword for some fantasy owners because Kyle Shanahan likes to go with the hot hand. Looking at the 49ers stable of ball carriers, who do we rely upon in Week 1?
Keiana, you hit the nail on the head. It's the hot hand is the problem for the fantasy manager. So I was the sucker getting Raheem Mostert in every team I could. 12 touchdowns the final 8 games last year. I know it could be frustrating because Shanahan likes that 3-headed monster, and obviously McKinnon is really impressed. Looks like a nightmare for linebackers to cover out of the backfield as a receiver. But Mostert should be the favorite at the goal line. He's so good. They figured out that contract issue. So give me Raheem Mostert with the warning that, yeah, it could delve into a bit of a committee situation that's not ideal for fantasy managers.
All right. At the top of this, you talked about George Kittle being your guy, not just this game, but this season. But I want to know, Week 1, who's your dark horse? Who should fantasy owners kind of keep an eye out for?
Okay, so I alluded to it earlier, but it's Jordan Reed. I know the concussions are definitely a concern long-term. He's healthy now with no Jalen Hurd. I know he's listed at tight end, but they will just use him out of the slot, the big slot role, especially in the red zone. So I'll just predict it right now. I'm predicting Jordan Reed will hit the end zone this week against Arizona.
Oh, that's exciting to see the 49ers' new tight end right there. All right, Dalton, 49ers and Cardinals aside, Week 1, what's the matchup you're looking forward to most?
All right, as fun as the Dallas and Rams will be, I got to say it's the Bucs and the Saints. I've been fading Tom Brady in fantasy throughout summer, so I just can't wait for him to make me look dumb and stupid with a big first game in New Orleans. But Yeah, there's some exciting matchups in week 1. I just can't wait for football to finally start. Can you believe it's actually happening?
I cannot believe it, and I cannot tell you how excited I am. I can't tell you how excited the faithful that are watching this are excited that football is finally back. That's it from Dalton and myself. I'm Keiana Martin. Good luck to you in this week's matchups, all of you fantasy owners out there, and make sure you start wisely.